Hello guys. Let's just do an audio check. Looks like things sound good on my end. Let me know how it sounds for you guys. Just give me an A-okay there. Yeah, thanks. People like the intro music. I want to start making music myself in that vein. Sorry, just beeping. Jack's working in this right now. Finds me talking distracting. I want to close the door, but I'm afraid of closing the door because, like, the internet, the Wi-Fi, I don't know how it works. The router is in, like, the far end of the house. So, I feel like if I close the door, I'm already getting, like, error things on my YouTube saying that I'm not receiving enough video to maintain smooth stream. I don't know. So, I don't do technology. Okay, cool. So, welcome back. We're here. We did it because I was streaming, I think, on like Thursday or something, and I wanted to maintain a proper streaming schedule. So, I think Tuesdays we'll do art history. Wednesday, tomorrow, I want to go over my comic book stuff because I have my comic book that I'm fulfilling. It's out, and I want to start promoting it a little bit more and start raising some more funding for the, what is it called, variant cover, and just kind of get this going and finish it up. But I think there's some interesting things we can talk about tomorrow for my comic book and symbolism and kind of a little bit about it. Yeah. And then Thursday, we will go back to etiquette. We haven't done etiquette in quite some time, but Emily Post is the leading author on etiquette in America, and it's really actually kind of fun. I think etiquette is really important because just like art and culture is important, I think it's actually part of culture, etiquette. Because the left have kind of thrown away the traditional idea of etiquette and replaced it with their own new kind of etiquette, which is like all the SJW or like critical race theory kind of thing, where it's just like different levels of who is above who now, and it's just like very strange and weird. And the old etiquette was just like elderly women, you know, we're not separating this by race or social like status as far as trans or whatever. Like, let's just like give respect to elderly women, whatever, and have this form of social cohesion that we've had for a while, and it makes sense, and let's look it over again and kind of understand it. And it's I think really interesting stuff, actually, and it's quite funny going over some Victorian etiquette. Okay. Yeah, I get out of breath really easily now because I'm like super pregnant, so I'm like, it's like, oh, I'm so big and out of breath all the time. So excuse me if I'm reading and then I get out of breath. I'm not used to being this like out of shape. It's ridiculous. Always been like a runner and an athlete my entire life. And now I'm just out of shape, man. Alright, let's get into it. Daniel, we may go over my favorite color tomorrow. We'll see. That joke will not get old, okay? We will cover that tomorrow. So, what is exciting is that we are starting a new chapter. We finished up last week with Europe and America, 1870 to 1900, with Impressionism, which, again, I feel like the right shit on a lot, but I quite like it. A hostile critic applied the term Impressionism to the paintings of Claude Monet because of their sketchy quality. The Impressionists, Monet, Pierre-Auguste Renoir, Edgar Degas, and others, strove to capture fleeting moments and transient effects of light and climate on canvas. The Impressionists also focused on recording contemporary urban life in Paris. They frequently painted scenes from bars, dance halls, the ballet, and railroad stations. So you can always go back to the previous videos and check those out. It was really interesting, actually, the whole Impressionist thing, and how that was like a derogatory term placed onto them, what they're called. And there was even some lawsuit with Whistler regarding it, and people, including the judge, were outraged, thinking they were taking the piss out of people because of the artwork. So it really resembles what's kind of going on in the contemporary world. And then we have complementing the Impressionists' sketchy, seemingly spontaneous brushstrokes are the compositions of their paintings, reflecting the influence of Japanese prints and photography. Impressionist works often have arbitrary cut-off figures and settings seen at sharply oblique angles. Then there is the Post-Impressionism. Post-Impressionism is not a unified style. The term refers to the group of late 19th century artists who followed the Impressionists and took paintings in a new direction. And there's Seurat. Thank you. Do you say the T? Is it French? Seurat refined the Impressionist approach to color and light into pointillism, the disciplined application of pure color in tiny daubs. Vincent van Gogh explored the capabilities of colors and distorted forms to express emotions as his dramatic depictions of the sky in Starry Night. Paul Gauguin, an admirer of Japanese prints, moved away from the Impressionism in favor of large areas of flat color bounded by firm lines. Paul Cézanne replaced the transitory visual effects of the Impressionists with a rigorous analysis of the lines, planes, and colors that make up landscapes and still lifes. Still lifes. I always found that word funny. Still lives? Still lifes. Hi, BMT Lines. Nice to see you. Okay. So, yeah, the pointillism bit I found really interesting because they used color theory for that to kind of mess with perspective of how your brain perceives things, and I find that to be a really interesting concept. So yeah, and then last week we went over symbolism and fin de siècle painting, which is the end of the century paintings. The symbolists disdained realism as trivial and sought to depict a reality beyond that of everyday world. They rejected materialism and celebrated fantasy and imagination. Their subjects were often mysterious, exotic, and sensuous. Henri Rousseau's Sleeping Gypsy, which alludes to the world of the subconscious during sleep, is a characteristic example. Late 19th century fin de siècle artists such as Edvard Munch in Norway and Gustav Klimt in Austria explored the opulent, decadent, sensuous, and unconscious in their paintings. Love those. I mean, I love Klimt. Great, great, great. I don't know if you guys have seen, or if you have the Klimt, like, what is it called? The immersive experience, where they have the projections all over the place. We have that in New York. It's really, really cool. I think they're in various cities and stuff. Glyph Zero says, my grandfather did a bunch of pointillism. That's all. Love that. It's really cool. Ryan Tyler Palmer. Oh, he's the inexorable word nerd. He says, sounds like me and my D&D group, fantasy over reality, LOL. There you go. That works. Then there is the sculpture section of this, and sculpture was not suited to capturing transitory optical effects or exploring the properties of color and line. And late 19th century sculptures thus pursued goals different from those of the Impressionists and Post-Impressionists. The leading sculptor of the era was Auguste Rodin, who explored realist themes and the representation of movement, as in his moving portrayal of 6 leading citizens of Calais, is that how you say it? Who sacrificed their lives for their countrymen. And then architecture, of course. Architecture is always involved in art history. New technologies and the changing need of urbanized, industrialized society transformed Western architecture at the close of the 19th century. The exposed iron skeleton of the Eiffel Tower, which blurs the distinction between interior and exterior, jolted architects into a realization that modern materials and processes could revolutionize architectural design. In the United States, Louis Sullivan was a pioneer in designing the first metal, stone, and glass skyscrapers. Okay, yeah, and then we are starting the new chapter, and I just love this picture. We're not in Cubism yet. We are going to be going over Fauvism and German Expressionism today. It's not too much, so I did look at, I wanted to keep kind of these things really in their box that they belong in, and I didn't want to go over too much in one video, so I don't think that there's that much in this chapter for Fauvism and German Expressionism, but I looked up additional things on YouTube. What the fuck am I talking about? I looked up additional things on Google, so we can kind of talk about maybe a little bit more on Matisse, because they just show like one picture of Matisse, and there's like other ones that are like, you know, actually they showed 2 things in the chapter about Matisse, and there's like other ones. There's one that I did like, I used to like replicating a lot of these masters. Oh, excuse me. And when I was young, I used to just like, you know, look at and try to understand what these artists were doing, and you know, replicate things. It was really good to train my eye and, you know, skills. And then you get into your own creations after that. But I remember doing a Matisse one. I did like a project on Matisse, and then I drew, I used like, I think pastels or something to do one of his pictures. So I don't know, yeah, let's look at a little bit more if we need to focus more time on things. But yeah, before we get into it, hello, welcome everybody. I'm so glad you're here. I really appreciate it. And I absolutely hate doing this. This part is really, I hate this word, but I'm going to say cringy to me. But I have to hustle a little bit. So I don't know why it says http:// because that is very unnecessary and boomer of me. So I am going to get rid of that part. Let's get rid of that. There we go. I don't think that's necessary. How do I fix this? It's not letting me. Oh well, I'll fix it another time. Oh, maybe I'll do that. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Figured it out. I don't think that's necessary. There we go. Boom. That makes it better. So, I hate this part. Thanks so much, Jay. That's right. Streamlabs.com/Martina Markota TV/tip, I think we gotta do nowadays. So I don't know what's going on with YouTube. I was monetized, and last time people said that they couldn't do like super chat for some reason. It wasn't working, and I was like, I don't know, it's weird. And then I went into the back end of YouTube and was checking out my monetization, and like, I don't know if they like changed things or what, but like, I don't know if I'm monetized anymore. So that's weird. I don't know if they changed things or if it was because I haven't streamed in a while, so they kind of were like, okay, they did email me saying they were going to demonetize me if I don't start streaming again. So I started streaming again. and then they demonetized me again. I don't know. But screw YouTube anyway. They take a third of the donations and stuff, so whatever. Just go to Streamlabs. If you go to streamlabs.com/Martina Markota TV/tip, Jay put the link in the chat. Maybe I should put it in the bio. That would be helpful. Oh, that's interesting, Matthias. Yeah, you just using the word lack of uploads. Yeah, he says the channel does seem to be demonetized. I guess due to the lack of uploads, they do that often. I mean, that makes sense because I didn't upload, I streamed live. So I thought that counts. What can you do? What can you do? Yeah, everyone is saying that there's no super chat button anymore. That sucks. Really, really sucks. What can you do? I try, and then things just don't work out. Whatever. Fuck them. Fuck YouTube. Just let's go to Streamlabs if you want to help me out. It really helps a lot. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And I get like the funds right away. I can't believe I'm demonetized. I'm kind of pissed about it. Fuck you, YouTube. Reach out to YouTube. Yeah, I guess I can try that. Thank you, Matthias. Appreciate it. So we have Europe and America, 1900s to 1900 to 1945. The first half of the 20th century was a period of significant upheaval worldwide. Wow. Between 1900 and 1945, the major industrial powers expanded their colonial empires, fought 2 global wars, witnessed the rise of communism, fascism, and Nazism, and suffered the Great Depression. That is quite a significant worldwide. These decades were also a time of radical change in the arts when painters and sculptors challenged some of the most basic assumptions about the purpose of art and what form an artwork should take. So this gets actually really interesting because of what they just mentioned. All of these worldwide things going on is like really dramatic, and it really does change the way artwork is, because we'll get into in the next video, along with Cubism, there's going to be Dada, and I have done a video on Dada a few years ago, and I actually find it really interesting because it's around this time period that like people are making kind of, this is when like the art and history really go hand in hand, and I've been saying this, but it does go hand in hand with politics as well. Now, sometimes I do bitch and complain about artwork being overtly political, and it can be really cringe, but I think with the Dadaism, it was about politics, but they wanted to kind of make a genuine statement. And it was really interesting how the avant-garde and all that kind of took shape, and we'll get into Dadaism next time. But CD said Dada is the worst, the worst. Yeah, I mean, I feel you. I understand your perspective on it, but I kind of see it as almost like in 2016 how memeing became like a thing. It was a type of artwork. It was a way of kind of using art and text, imagery and text to make a statement, make like a fuck you, and even Duchamp with his statements being like, you guys like, look, I can put a urinal here and you'll call it artwork, and they do. And so it was like making a point, and I think it was a valid point. It's interesting to study it, at least. It's not necessarily always aesthetically pleasing, but I like weird and I like the avant-garde, so I don't know. It's just me. Yeah, exactly, Jay. The Dadaism was OG shitposting. Okay, so early 20th century imperialism was capitalist and expansionist, establishing colonies as raw material sources, as manufacturing markets, and as territorial acquisitions. Colonialism also often had the missionary dimension of bringing the light of Christianity and civilization to backward peoples and educating inferior races. Nationalism and rampant imperialism led to competition. Eventually, countries negotiated alliances to protect their individual interests. These conflicts between the two major blocs, the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, and the Triple Entente, is that how you say it? Russia, France, and Great Britain, led to World War I, which began in 1914. Although the United States tried to remain neutral, it finally felt compelled to enter the war in 1917. The slaughter and devastation of the Great War lasted until 1918. Not only were more than 9 million soldiers killed in battle, but the introduction of poison gas in 1915 added to the horror of humankind's inhumanity to itself. Oh god, now people are saying Streamlabs isn't cooperating? Do I need to make an account? I mean, maybe. Let me know if Streamlabs is working, guys. Oh, wait, something came in Streamlabs. That's great. Okay, let me see. Come on. Here we go. Thank you, CD, is it? Oh shit. Sorry. I don't know why Streamlabs like hides, like blurs the donation, and I keep clicking on it and now I redid it. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. The hot dog action. I gotta make more cooking videos. Thank you, man. Thank you, CD. Well, for that, okay, CD is saying to Dave Incognito, you do, I logged in using my YouTube account. Actually, that's how I log in as well. Thank you, Optimus. Nice to see you. Appreciate it. That's right, Jay. He says, if I recall correctly, Julius Evola was into Dada for a bit. Yeah, he actually had some really interesting paintings that are similar to what we're going to be going over, I think, today and next week, with it's like a little cubism type of style. And yeah, you're right. There is some interesting aspects to it, but as CD gave a donation, I will also acknowledge that he said that Dadaism was used by his professors in college to make horrible performance art. I despise Dada. Yeah, I could imagine that. I can. Hello, nation state. Nice to see you. Haven't seen you guys in a while. Okay, so yeah, we got into World War One. The Russian Revolution exacerbated the global chaos when it erupted in 1917. Dissatisfaction with the regime of Tsar Nicholas II around 1894 to 1917 led workers to stage a general strike, and the monarchy's rule ended with the Tsar's abdication in March. In late 1917, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, 1870 to 1924, wrested control of the country, nationalized the land, and turned it over to the local rural Soviets, councils of workers and soldiers' deputies. After extensive civil war, the communists, as they now call themselves, established the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics in 1923. Sad all that went down. Economic upheaval followed on the heels of war and revolution. The Great Depression of the 1930s dealt with a serious blow to the stability of Western countries. By 1932, unemployment in the British workforce stood at 25%, and 40% of German workers were without jobs. This is kind of what led into World War II, or the rise of Nazism, because Germans were in a shit place after World War One, and they needed someone to kind of come in and be like, you know. But okay, where are we? Production in the United States plummeted by 50%. This economic disaster, along with the failure of post-war treaties and the League of Nations to keep the peace, provided a fertile breeding ground for dangerous forces to emerge once again. That's what I'm talking about. Mussolini, 1883 to 1945, established the nationalistic fascist regime in Italy. Joseph Stalin, 1879 to 1953, gained control of the Communist Party in the Soviet Union. And Adolf Hitler, 1889 to 1945, consolidated his powers in Germany by building the Nazi Party into a mass political movement. Yeah. Okay, let me just get back to this for a second. Shandy Boy, is that how you say it? Shandy Boy says, whoa, this is neat. How often do you do these? First time. Welcome, welcome. Well, I used to do them regularly, then I stopped for a bit. Now we're doing it regularly again. Welcome. Tuesdays, I think 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be doing it. That's the plan. That's the goal. And it is really fun. We have great chat. Everyone in the chat is really awesome. It's a great vibe. And we always learn something new. It's really fun. And I mean, just listen to this intro for this chapter. How connected art and history is and politics are is just crazy. They are so interconnected. It's really interesting, actually. Art history is one of my favorite subjects. So anyway, after we're talking about all these people, Mussolini and what's his face? Mussolini and what did I just do? Fuck. Gotta get back to it. Yeah. There we go. That's it. Mussolini, Stalin. That's what it was. It was some communists. Stalin and Hitler. Mm-mm-mm. These ruthless seizures of power led to the many conflicts that evolved into World War II, which erupted in 1939, when Germany invaded Poland and Britain and France declared war on. Sorry. Okay. Punctuation matters here. So these ruthless seizures of power led to the many conflicts that evolved into World War II, which erupted in 1939 when Germany invaded Poland and Britain and France declared war on Germany. Eventually, this conflict earned its designation as a world war. While Germany and Italy fought most of Europe and the Soviet Union, Japan invaded China and occupied Indochina. After the Japanese bombing of Pearl Harbor in Hawaii in 1941, the United States declared war on Japan. Germany, in loose alliance with Japan, declared war on the United States. This catastrophic struggle drew to an end in 1945 when the Allied forces defeated Germany and the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. The shock of the war's physical, economic, and psychological devastation tempered the elation people felt at the conclusion of global hostilities. Interesting. Crazy shit going on around that time. Woo! Wow. So, yeah. Chadius Maximus, hello. Nice to see you in here. Matisse says, art is inherently political as well as an expression of oneself. It can be many things, but it shall always repeat beauty in my opinion. Represent beauty in my opinion. Right, yeah, nice. Well, that was really dramatic. If you guys have anything more to add to that, this is interesting. I think that they do a pretty good job in these textbooks of like being pretty objective about stuff. Again, sometimes see little hints of their leftism kind of starting to creep up, but I think these books were published quite some time ago. At least the books I have are probably a few decades old. And I don't know if these new versions of stuff have put more and more lefty stuff into it, but you know, they definitely kind of have a leaning against colonialization and all that stuff, but it's still fairly objective to history, and I like it. It's interesting. Jay says, hey, the splintering, nice to see you. Jay says, yeah, once Hitler came into the picture, this chapter escalated really quickly. That's so true. Okay, so we get into Europe 1900 to 1920. Like other members of society, artists deeply felt the effects of the political and economic disruptions of the early 20th century. As the old social orders collapsed and new ones, from communism to corporate capitalism, took their place, artists searched for new definitions of and uses for art in a radically changed world. I mean, I think that's actually an interesting point too, because when we're dealing with, well, we're not in the Depression quite yet. So we're at 1900 and 1920, but still, when things are radically changing and stuff like that, and they got Russia's shit's going on over there with their czars or whatever, what have yous, and shit in Italy is going off. Especially with like stuff like Great Depression and war, like people aren't necessarily buying art to hang in their house and stuff like that. It becomes more of a like expression kind of thing. So it's actually really interesting how that all kind of comes into play. There's always going to be art, you know, whether people are consuming art and financially and appreciating it and hanging it up in their homes or houses or what have you. Artists are going to put on performance art pieces, make expressions to get people to gather and make a point. And like, there's always going to be art and artists. It's really interesting. Again, sorry, I'm like out of breath all the time because I'm pregnant, so. Oof. We got another donation. Ah, Dave Incognito. Thank you so much. Hot dog action. Thank you so much. That reminds me, YouTube sucks and demonetized me. So if you would like to help me out and donate, you can go to the link that you see up here or in the chat. It's streamlabs.com/Martina Markota TV/tip. Thank you so much. That's right, Dave Incognito. 8 more of you dropped $20 and I hit my goal. It really helps. I really appreciate it. Okay, let's get back to it. Like other members of society, artists deeply felt the effects of the political and economic disruptions of the early 20th century. As the old socialist orders collapsed and new ones from communism to corporate capitalism took their place, artists searched for new definitions of and uses for art in a radically changed world. Already in the 19th century, each successive modernist movement had challenged artistic conventions, giving rise to the avant-garde. That means front guard. So it's like pushing forward. It's like push forward. That's what it means. A term derived from French military usage. Avant-garde artists were the vanguard or trailblazers. They rejected the classical, academic, and traditional and zealotry. Excuse me. Jack just came and closed the door on me. I see how it is. They rejected the classical, academic, and traditional and zealously explored the premises and formal qualities of painting and sculpture. In the early 1900s, avant-garde principles first emerged forcefully in the general movement that art historians called Expressionism. Although used in connection with a wide variety of art, at its essence, the term refers to art that is the result of the artist's personal vision and that often has an emotional dimension. Expressionism, emotion, Expressionism contrasts strongly with most Western post-Renaissance art, which focused on visually describing the empirical world. So yeah, remember going back to the other chapters, there was a point where people were like really focused on describing like through visuals like the empirical world. It was very like scientific method. I think this was around when the Enlightenment was going on. Everything was very like empirical. This is the way things are, and like very straight, very like this is what things are, and we're going to show things exactly as it is. And then Expressionism, it's always flip flopping. They go from one to the other, one to the other, one to the other. It's like very rational and real, and then we get like avant-garde and emotional and expressive. Actually, what I find interesting is that even the empirical like artwork was like very scientifically kind of driven, where it was almost kind of like a push away from the more spiritual, expressive things and symbolism and the religious artworks. So in a way, this is expressionism is like more similar to the like religious artworks because they're dealing more with like expressing themselves and emotions and um, symbolism and things that are like a little bit deeper instead of just like pure facts. Kind of cool. Okay, so then we get it's just like get so out of breath. So now we're into Fauvism, one of the first expressionist movements of the 20th century was Fauvism. In 1905, a group of young painters exhibited canvases so simplified in design and so shockingly bright in color that a startled critic, Louis Vassels, how do you say that? Vauxcelless. It's like, sounds like voluntary celibates, the Vassals. 1870 to 1943, described the artist as Fauves, wild beasts, that's what it translates to. Driving the Fauve movement was a desire to develop an art that had the directness of Impressionism, but that also used intense color, juxtapositions, and their emotional capabilities. The legacy of artists such as Van Gogh and Gauguin, Fauve artists went even further in liberating color from its descriptive functions, using it for both expressive and structural ends. So yeah, I mean, I think in the other chapter with Impressionism, it kind of did that too, where they used, like, I think Monet used really interesting colors in a lot of his, like, pieces to show, like, weird colors of, like, the sunset, or, like, purple and all stuff going on. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just catching up on your like chatting in chat a little bit. So, hey guys, hey Snaggy Jr. Let's see. Now we have Henri Matisse. The dominant figure of the Fauve group was Henri Matisse, 1869 to 1954, who believed color could play a primary role in conveying a meaning and focused his efforts on developing this notion. Matisse explained his approach, quote, "What characterized Fauvism was that we rejected imitative colors, and that with pure colors we obtained stronger reactions." End quote. In Woman with the Hat, sorry, the title of that painting, or what is this? It's oil on canvas. Yeah, painting. The title of that painting is so like autistic how I would name something. Woman with the Hats. Let me bring it up for you. That is exactly how I would title a painting. Woman with the Hat. See, I quite like it. I think it's really cool looking. It doesn't have to be realistic or have the realistic colors and stuff like that. It's just, I like it. Like, look at how that looks in the frame over here. What if that was hanging up on my wall? How cool is that? Dr. Seuss would love that painting's name, says Matthias. It's true. True. Okay, we got another super chat. $5 one. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a very interesting name you have there. Little Boogie. Cool. Thank you so much. Yay. I'm actually getting some donations. That's great. It really helps me out a lot. You have no idea. Yeah, the painting looks fantastic. Look at that. In Woman with the Hat, Matisse depicted his wife. How do you say this name? It's A-M-E with a little thingy, L-I-E. Amelia? I'm going to say Amelia. In a rather conventional manner, compositionally. It's true, I like it. Her face is such a model face. It's like... but he used seemingly arbitrary colors. The entire image, the woman's face, clothes, hat, and background, consist of patches and splotches of color juxtaposed in ways that sometimes produce jarring contrasts. I love it. Let's zoom in a little bit on it. I love the background swatches like that. It's really cool. Snuggy Genius asked, what was her reaction to the painting, though? Question. Good question. The maturation of Matisse's exploration of the expressive power of color is evident in Red Room, Harmony in Red. Again, another beautifully autistic name, Red Room. Let me get you that one. Indeed is a red room. Love it. To zoom in a little bit on it, so we detailing the outside the window. It's not so red. Red. Lady's working on her little fruit bowl, I think. Dinner rolls on the table. The subject is the interior of a comfortable, prosperous household, with a maid placing fruit and wine on the table. But Matisse's canvas is radically different from traditional paintings of domestic interiors. The Fauve painter depicted objects in simplified and schematized fashion and flattened the forms. Yeah, for sure. For example, Matisse eliminated the front edge of the table, making the table with its identical patterning as flat as the wall behind it. Yeah, I mean, even with the patterns, it's like all kind of blends in. You can tell that it's a table and the wall, but it's like the wallpaper and the table match. The window at the upper left could also be a painting on the wall. That's what I thought, because it was like in a frame, but I was like, nah, it's outside, dude. Further flattening the space. Everywhere the colors contrast richly and intensely. Initially, this work was predominantly green, and then Matisse repainted it blue. Neither seemed appropriate. Not until he repainted the canvas red did Matisse feel he had found the right color for the harmony he wished to compose. I could see that. I mean, red and green are complementary colors, so with all of the green going on outside, I think red is a good choice for the room. The red room. So red is color of like, see, I'm making this hand movement. It's like, it's good for kitchens because it makes you hungry. It's like very active. It's an active color. So, yeah. Hello, Byronic. Nice to see you in here. So let me back up a little bit. Oh, let me zoom in for you a little bit. So I always forget to read these little things. I'm just going to go back to this Matisse portrait over here of his wife. Woman with the Hat. It was painted 1905. It is oil on canvas, 2 feet 7 3/4 inches by 1 foot 11.5 inches, and it's in the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco. Matisse portrayed his wife, Emilie, using patches and splotches of seemingly arbitrary colors. He and other Fauve painters used color not to imitate nature, but to produce a reaction in the viewer. Correct. Okay, and then we have this one that we just went over, the Red Room, Harmony in Red, 1908 to 1909, oil on canvas, 5 feet 11 inches by 8 feet 1 inch. Big, and it's at the State Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. Oh my god, I've been there. It's in Russia. Cool. The Hermitage Museum is really cool there. That's where the Tsar Nicholas and stuff. Their palace that they got like, how do you say it? Ambushed in there. Matisse believed painters should choose compositions and colors that express their feelings. Here, the table and the wall seem to merge because they are the same color and have identical patterning. True. In 1908 essay entitled, quote, Notes of a Painter, Henri Matisse set forth his principles and goals as a painter. The excerpts that follow help explain what Matisse was trying to achieve in paintings such as Harmony in Red. Zoom in a little because it's hard to read. What I am after, above all, is expression. Expression for me does not reside in passions glowing in a human face or manifested by violent movement. The entire arrangement of my picture is expressive. The place occupied by the figures, the empty spaces around them, the proportions, everything has its share. Composition is the art of arranging in a decorative manner the diverse elements at the painter's command to express his feelings. Both harmonies and dissonances of color can produce agreeable effects. Suppose I have to paint an interior. I have before me a cupboard. It gives me a sensation of vivid red, and I put down a red which satisfies me. A relation is established between this red and the white on the canvas. Let me put a green near the red. Red and green, complementary colors. And make the floor yellow, and again there will be relationships between the green or yellow and white of the canvas which will satisfy me. A new combination of colors will succeed the first. The relationship I have found in all the tones, there must result a living harmony of colors, harmony analogous to that of a musical composition. My choice of colors does not rest on any scientific theory. I was just talking about color theory there, but he says it's not true. It is based on observation, on sensitivity, on felt experiences. I simply try to put down colors which render my sensation. Okay, well, fine then, Henri Matisse. Fine then. Hey, Vaporized Retrowaves, nice to see you. Oof. Michael says, I love that red. The color makes its own statement. The abstracted interior of the room still comes across carried on the color. I agree. I really like this red. So I know you guys missed my green room where the walls were painted green. I love classical, like, office space where it has green walls and gold frames. So I definitely want to get that back. But I also really like red walls. I think they're underrated. Red walls are cool. Okay, before we head into German Expressionism, I kind of want, let me see, how long have we been going? Okay, a little over an hour. So, before we do German Expressionism, I kind of want to just quickly look at stuff I found online. I think we need to go too much into sidetracked, but maybe a little bit. Let's see. Oh no, what'd I do? This Chopin kind of gets a little intense sometimes. Hello, Dan. Nice to see you. Okay. So this is from the Tate website, Tate Museum in England. In there, it's quite cool. Should check it out. But it says Fauvism is the name applied to the work produced by a group of artists, which included Henri Matisse and Andre Derain, from around 1905 to 1910, which is characterized by strong colors and fierce brushwork. I love that. Fierce brushwork. Again, I like it. Look at it in the frame. Look at it in this room in the frame. I think it's cool. I'm trying to position it for you. Lovely. And we have the name Les Fauves, the wild beast, was coined by the critic Louis Vassals when he saw the work of Henri Matisse and Andre Derain in an exhibition, the Salon d'Automne in Paris in 1905. The paintings Derain and Matisse exhibited were the result of a summer spent working together in Collier in the south of France, and were made using bold, non-naturalistic colors, often applied directly from the tube. Wow. And wild, loose dabs of paint. The forms of the subject were also simplified, making their work appear quite abstract. Other like-minded artists associated with Fauvism included George Braque, Duffy, I don't know those other, whatever. Fauvism and color theory. The Fauvists were interested in the scientific color theories developed in the 19th century, particularly those relating to complementary colors. That's what I was saying, but according to Matisse's quote himself, he says he's not doing that. So, excuse me? He just said he wasn't doing any sort of color theory or anything. He's just doing what he likes, what he thinks looks good. Anyway, complementary colors or pairs of colors appear opposite each other on the scientific models, such as the color wheel, and when used side by side in a painting, make each other look brighter. I don't know about brighter, but they complement. They look good together. What inspired Fauvism and what happened to it? Fauvism can be seen as an extreme extension of the post-impressionism of Van Gogh. That's what I see. I see a lot of Van Gogh in it, actually, with the not just the weird coloring, if we remember back in the last chapter, that Van Gogh had like weird colors for things, but the application of the paint was really like intense and like splotchy on there as well. Combined with the neo-impressionism of Seurat, the influences of these earlier movements inspired Matisse and his followers to reject traditional three-dimensional spaces and instead used flat areas or patches of color to create a new pictorial space. Fauvism can also be seen as a form of expressionism in its use of brilliant colors and spontaneous brushwork. It has often been compared to German Expressionism, which emerged at around the same time and was also inspired by the developments of post-impressionism. So we're going to get there in a second. Although one of the first avant-garde modernist movements of the 20th century, and one of the first styles to make a move towards abstraction, for many of the artists who adopted a Fauvism approach, it became a... Sorry, I just got distracted because I thought that Matisse was the father of Impressionism, the grandfather of Impressionism, but it seems that it's after we did the Impressionists. Maybe I got that totally wrong, but I always thought Matisse kind of fathered Impressionism, but we'll see. Maybe the Impressionism movement kind of has more? No, like we already did Impressionism. Interesting. I definitely see him as an Impressionist. Sure. Okay, let me get back to this. Although one of the first avant-garde modernist movements of the 20th century, and one of the first styles to make a move towards abstraction, for many of the artists who adopted a Fauvist approach, it became a transitional stepping stone for future developments in their style. By 1908, most of the main artists in the group had moved away from the expressive emotionalism of Fauvism. A renewed interest in post-impressionist artist Paul Cézanne and the analytical approach he took with painting landscapes, peoples, and objects inspired many artists to embrace order and structure instead. One-time Fauvist George Braque went on to develop Cubism along with Pablo Picasso, while one of Fauvism's founders, André Derain, adopted a more conventional neoclassical style. Interesting. Henri Matisse, however, continued to use the distinctive Fauvist traits of the bright emotive colors, simple shapes, and painterly mark-making throughout his career. Splintering said, German Expressionist film is great. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is a visual tour de force. Cool, thanks for that. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, this is another page really quickly that just had a lot of works on it. These are all, I think, Matisse. And you can just see, just looking at it from afar, all of these things, like how it looks. This is Fauvism, how that looks. It's really cool. And then there's the characteristic elements of Fauvism painting. It is one of the fundamental avant-gardes of the early 20th century, a time when the subjectivity of the artist was becoming more and more important. The inner world of the artists, their emotions and feelings, were more important than the outside world that they represented in their paintings. A subjectivity that the Fauves, wild beasts, expressed fundamentally with a wild coloring. So they have colors that express feelings, The colors are not faithful to reality, but are faithful to what the artist feels. Emotive distortion. The forms do not faithfully copy reality either. The artists paint the emotions that the things transmit to them. Predominant feeling, the joy of living. Violent color contrast. I like that. Violent color contrast. Cool. Almost no shades are used. I think there's some shades, but it's they use color for shades, so like it creates energetic brushstrokes without delicacy. Simple drawing, flat figures, delineated contours, fascination with primitivism, disregard for the traditional rules of perspective, true, predominance of instinct over thought. Okay. Well, that's that. And we will now get back to German Expressionism. Okay, before we continue with German Expressionism, I'm just going to hustle a little bit more and just remind you that for some reason I've become demonetized on YouTube. Really bummed about that, but if you would like to help and contribute to what I am doing here, bringing you education, culture, and all that stuff, you can donate to streamlabs.com/Martina Markota TV/tip. I really appreciate it. Appreciate you guys in the chat. Great. So we have German Expressionism. The immediacy and boldness of the Fauve images appealed to many artists, including the German Expressionists. However, although color plays a prominent role in the contemporaneous German painting, the expressiveness of the German images is due to as much to wrenching distortions, forms, ragged outlines, and agitated brushstrokes. Chopin, I gotta change the music because the Chopin is really intense in the background. He needs to calm the fuck down. So what am I? Like distracting me. This approach resulted in savagely powerful, emotional canvases in the years leading to World War I. So we have Ernst, Ludwig, Kirchner. Is that how you say that? First group of German artists to explore expressionist ideas gathered in Dresden in 1905 under the leadership of Ernst Ludwig Kirchner, 1880 to 1938. The group members thought of themselves as paving the way for a more perfect age by bridging the old age and new age, and the new. Okay. So they thought of themselves as paving the way for a more perfect age by bridging the old age and the new. I mean, I like that. I think that's always a great concept of creating something new by taking the old and doing something new with it. I like that. They derived their name, Brücke, the bridge, from this concept. The bridge artist protested the hypocrisy and materialism of those in power. Kirchner, in particular, focused much of his attention on the detrimental effects of industrialization, such as the alienation of individuals in cities, which he felt fostered a mechanized and impersonal society. I mean, these kind of sounds like the trads online, because they're all like, get out of the cities, and they're all about, bridging the old. I don't know about with the new, but they're into the old, and they're all about leaving cities and industrialization. So Kirchner's Street Dresden. Let's look at that. This one. There you go. Again, look at it in this frame next to me. Room, like, it's cool. I like it. Look at this one. I like it. So this provides a glimpse into the frenzied activity of a German city before World War I. Rather than the distant panoramic urban view the Impressionists favored, this street scene is jarring and dissonant. The women in the foreground loom large, approaching the viewer somewhat menacingly. I agree with that. The steep perspective of the street, which threatens to push the women into the viewer's space, increases their confrontational nature. Partially remembered, the women's features make them appear ghoulish, and the garish, clashing colors, juxtapositions of bright orange, emerald green, acrid chartreuse, and pink, add to the expressive impact of the image. Kirchner's perspectival distortions, disquieting figures, and color choices reflect the influence of the work of Edvard Munch. I agree. That's exactly what I thought when I looked at it. It looked like kind of like similar to the Scream, who made similar expressive use of formal elements in the Scream. Yeah, I totally got that from that picture. Was going to say it. Okay, so then we get into another one that I particularly like. I know you guys don't really care for this kind of stuff, but I like it. Again, look at it in this frame next to me. How cool does that look? I like it. Funky. Just gonna leave it like zoomed in a little bit because it looks cool in the frame. This is Kandinsky. Did not realize his first name was Vassily Kandinsky. A second major German expressionist group, Der Blaue Reiter, the Blue Rider, formed in Munich in 1911. The two founding members, Vassily Kandinsky and Franz Marc, whimsically selected this name because of their mutual interest in the color blue and in horses. Aww. Like Die Brücke, the bridge, this group produced paintings that captured the artist's feelings in visual form while also eliciting intense visceral responses from viewers. Actually, this reminds me, I should have played, there's like some YouTube videos you can look up where it's like Kandinsky art that is like in motion. It's what is it called? And it's animated, so it's really cool. And then they play it with music, and then it's like things are moving and colors and shapes start appearing. It's really, really cool. Actually, I want my kids to watch stuff like that. Really cool. Born in Russia, Kandinsky, 1866 to 1944, moved to Munich in 1896 and soon developed a spontaneous and aggressively avant-garde expressive style. I love that. Aggressively avant-garde. I'm into it. Aggressively avant-garde. Indeed, Kandinsky was one of the first artists to explore complete abstraction, as in improvisation. This, what we have before you. A true intellectual, Kandinsky was one of the few artists to read and, with some comprehension the new scientific theories of the era formulated by Max Planck, 1858 to 1947, Ernst Rutherford, 1871 to 1937, and Albert Einstein, 1879 to 1955, and Niels Bohr, 1885 to 1962. Fundamental to Enlightenment thought was faith in science. Yeah, but the work of these scientists shattered people's confidence in the objective reality of matter. Rutherford's exploration of atomic structure, for example, convinced Kandinsky that material objects had no real substance. Yeah, it's interesting. Because, like, what? Like, atoms are mostly air, right? It's like empty space is what atoms really are. That's what you learn in science, chemistry and stuff. Like, things are made up of nothing mostly. It's weird. The painter articulated his ideas in an influential 1912 treatise concerning the spiritual in art. That is so interesting. I actually want to look into that. Kandinsky, man, I dig it. I dig it because, like, I studied math, and then, you know, because when you are a math major, you have to do like sciences. So I'm into that as well, and spiritual stuff, because the alchemy, and I mean, alchemists were also the early scientists, and it just all kind of comes together. And it's interesting that this artist was also into it, and he had a treatise concerning the spiritual in art. I love that. I'm going to look into that. Hold on, let me write that down. Some research. The biggest Sharpie in the world to make a note. Let's look into this. We have Kandinsky, 1912, treatise concerning spiritual in art. I mean, that's very Lady Alchemy. I'm into that. Michael said that weirdly Kandinsky was also involved in the German Bauhaus movement of art design. Clean, geometric, stark. Still see Bauhaus influence in German wristwatch brands like Nomos and Jungens. Yeah, that's interesting. I love Bauhaus as well. Okay, so yeah, the painter articulated his ideas as in his influential 1912 treatise concerning the spiritual in art, which contributed to the growing interest in abstraction. Artists, Kandinsky believed, must express the spirit and their innermost feelings by orchestrating color, form, line, and space. He produced numerous works like Improvisation 28, conveying emotion through color juxtapositions, intersecting linear elements, and implied spatial relationships. Ultimately, Kandinsky saw these abstractions as evolving blueprints for more enlightened and liberated society, emphasizing spirituality. That's really interesting because it's not like just some super lefty, like anti-spiritual shit. So this is his Improvisation 28. Let me just zoom out a little for you so you see the full picture. And it is 1912, oil on canvas, 3 feet 7 7/8 inches by 5 feet 3 7/8 inches, and it's at the Guggenheim Museum in New York City. Awesome, I can go see this. Sweet. I feel like I was at the Guggenheim not too long ago. It was a gift of Solomon R. Guggenheim in 1937. Kandinsky believed that artists must express their innermost feelings by orchestrating color, form, line, and space. He was one of the first painters to explore complete abstraction in his canvases. Very cool. Ooh. Damn kids next door, I swear to God, I can hear them. They're constantly hollering. I don't understand why kids scream so often nowadays. I thought you're screaming if you're in danger or hurt. They've been screaming for hours. Matisse said, not sure if you saw the short film Pi, directed by Darren Aronofsky. It's about math and God. The ending is kind of weird, but I think you'll like it. I've definitely seen that. I saw that as a teenager back in the day, man, decades ago. Hell yeah, it's a great film. Can you hear them, Jay? For real, you can hear kids. You can hear them hooting and hollering. Are you serious? It's not even as loud as it has been. God, I swear to God, I've complained to the neighbor too. Like, lady, I can hear your fucking kids screaming, and not only am I trying to work in this office, this is the baby room. Like, no, why are they screaming? Sometimes it's really bad. Four String said, last time I was at the Guggenheim, they had an Italian Futurism exhibit. Really cool. Hell yeah, that sounds really awesome. Oh my God, Jay, I can't believe that. So fucking. Like, people don't get the hint either. Not even a hint. Like, people, like, when you, like, point out, like, hey, you know, your kids are screaming and it's really distracting. Like, I'm trying to work. That's my office. It's also where the baby's gonna be. Like, can we not? And it's just like, they make excuses. It's like, I have to hear, oh, I'm so sorry. It's just, you know, the one took the other's iPad. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. Like, thank you for explaining your fucking children's argument to me. I don't care. They should not be screaming all the time, every day. And it's not a one time. And it's like, they act like it's a one-off thing. Oh, one took the other one's iPad, so like, oh, you know, they had a disagreement. No, they were screaming at the top of their lungs, and it happens every day for a certain allotted amount of hours. It goes all the way up until 11 p.m. So, no, correct this behavior. And it's just like, it'll be quiet for that evening that I complained, and then the next day it's back to normal. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Now, my kids are not screaming at the top of their lungs when we have neighbors, and it's just not appropriate. Like, what are you screaming at? Are you screaming because someone took your iPad? No. No. Not happening. Like, those are not well-behaved kids, like, by any means. I have 5 siblings, okay? And I'm, like, 12 years older than the youngest one. And I did a lot of the parenting of them. And let me tell you, they did not scream like that. There was no screaming at the top of their lungs. There was 6 of us, okay? We did not sound like that. We had really strict Slav mom, but that was besides the point. I was doing the parenting, and no. Hey, Swamp Fox, thank you so much. Mattia says, you're being like me, and that neighbor who's always parking his motorbike outside my house. It's loud and annoying. Right? Thank you, Jay. And your nephew is young, okay? These are like, I'm talking about older kids. Like, these are like, maybe even teenagers, but like, preteens, like cooped up in one tiny room, a bunch of them, and they're screaming at all hours for hours long. I grew up with 5 siblings. We did not act like that. Hey, Donald Kent. Nice to see you in here. Sorry, I was bitching about neighbors' kids. They're interrupting the stream. So, okay, let's get back to this German Expressionism. That's right, Daniel. Same here. In my case, grew up with a strict Italian household. Let me tell you something. Danny's next door. I don't know how they're allowed to live like that. You would think that they're more conservative, but like, apparently not. Apparently they're allowed to just do whatever the fuck they want, and they can yell about iPads. Like, give me a real problem on the screen. Okay, maybe if they screamed and like one of them like hurt themselves and it was like, yeah, he like really hurt himself. Got it, cool. Like, it happens. But like, why are you just screaming every day for hours up until 11 p.m.? Exactly, BMT Lines. He said, I can hear my next door neighbor's kids through double brick. This is brick and cement. This is like a wall to another house. This isn't like my house. Like, I had my landlord in here to hang some paintings up, and he needed like the drill bit that goes into concrete. He needed the concrete drill bit. This brick and like concrete. I can hear them. Like, what the fuck? Oh my god. Okay, let's see what we're dealing with here. We have Franz Marc. Yeah, exactly. Kids run the house. That's not okay. No. And the thing is, it's like when you complain about, it's like, I'll try or whatever. It's like, what the fuck is I'll try? Who, like, are you a parent? And then it's just like, it pisses me off because it's like, oh, you'll see when you have more than one. And it's like, no, don't give me that. I was raising 5 siblings when I was a teenager, okay? So I controlled my siblings plenty. And I was very young when I was doing it. And second of all, I have the kids that I can afford and that I can control. If you can't afford to have more than one room to pile like 1 million kids in, don't have so many, okay? And if you can't control the amount of kids you have, don't have so many, okay? Don't act like it's like I don't know what I'm doing. Like, no, I know. I have this bedroom and a kid, and you know, really shouldn't have more than that in this kind of small room. It's New York City. I don't know how they have like 5 grown-ass fucking kids in there or something. Like, ridiculous amount of kids. And they act like they can't control them. Not having it. Not having it. Anyway. Exactly, Michael. Thank you. Oh no, what did I do? What did I do? Ah! Let me get this back. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Nah, Jay, these aren't even roommates. These are neighbors. Okay? Roommates, I understand you could hear, but I did have roommates that were really shitty, and Jay knows about this. But, like, you can hear roommates for sure, but why am I hearing your children through concrete and brick? Insane. And yes, Jay, she did decorate for Valentine's Day, but she didn't touch my door this time. So we have Franz Marc. Like many of the other German expressionists, Franz Marc, 1880 to 1916, grew increasingly pessimistic about the state of humanity, especially as World War I loomed on the horizon. His perception of human beings as deeply flawed led him to turn to the animal world for his subjects. I mean, we were just bitching about flawed human beings, right? Animals, he believed, were more beautiful, more pure. Okay, relax. This is some very lefty shit. That annoys me. When people like, oh god, sorry. When people act like animals are better than humans, I don't like that lefty talking point. No. Disagree. And they're not more pure. Have you ever seen an animal? My cat, cute little, tiny little cat. Well, she's not a kitten, but little cat. She's a very petite kitty. She's a vicious killer. She's a meat-eating killer. Absolutely evil if there was a rodent in the house, okay. Animals, he believed, were more beautiful and more pure than humanity, and thus more appropriate as a vehicle to express an inner truth. In his quest to imbue his paintings with greater emotional intensity, Marc focused on color and developed a system of correspondences between specific colors and feelings or ideas. According to Marc, blue is the male principle, severe and spiritual. Yellow is the female principle, gentle, happy, and sensual. Red is matter, brutal, and heavy. None of that is acceptable today, Marc, okay, Franz Marc, because you can't assume genders. You can't put whatever the fuck a lefty would say about this stuff. You know what I'm getting at, guys. Marc's attempts to create, in a sense, an iconography of color links him to other avant-garde artists struggling to redefine the practice of art. Avant-garde artists struggling to redefine the practice of art. Fate of the Animals is this figure that I'm going to bring up. 1 second. It was actually the inspiration for the thumbnail today. I just thought it was really cool. I do like all these lines and colors. I think it's interesting, and it worked really well with some of my photography. I like it. So this represents the culmination of Marc's color explorations. Painted in 1913, when the tension of impending cataclysm had prevailed society, the animals appear trapped in a forest, some apocalyptic event destroying both them and the trees. Well, I'm not really seeing that. Oh, okay, actually. I think I see an animal here. This blue thing is an animal. Right? Is some sort of animal right here? Any other animals? I didn't see it as animals to me. Blue one I see as an animal. Okay, oh, I see like horses here. Okay, I see animals here. It's cool. It's kind of like futurism. Okay, I see animals here. It is kind of like futurism. Interesting. The painter distorted the entire scene and shattered it into fragments. Significantly, the lighter and brighter colors, the passive, gentle, and cheerful ones, are absent, and the colors of severity and brutality dominate the work. Marc discovered the red and the blues, as he described his color theory previously. Marc discovered just how well his paintings portended war's anguish and tragedy when the army sent him into the front the following year. Oh shit. His experiences in battle prompted him to write to his wife that Fate of the Animals is like a premonition of this war, horrible and shattering. I can hardly conceive that I painted. His contempt for people's inhumanity and his attempt to express that through his art ended with tragic irony in his death in action in World War I in 1916. Holy shit, that's crazy. So this guy was like, thought that humanity was really just like fucked up, and you know, was really against all this stuff, and then he got sent to war in World War One, and was like, I can't even fathom that I painted. I'm dealing with war and tragedy. This is crazy, and then died. That's wild. It's oil and canvas. It was painted in 1913. It's 6 feet 4 1/4 inches by 8 feet 9.5 inches, and it's in a museum in Basel. Marc developed a system of correspondences between specific colors and feelings or ideas. In this apocalyptic scene of animals trapped in a forest, the colors of severity and brutality dominate. Interesting. Oh, okay. And then he just died. I don't know why that summary sounded funny, but it did. I don't know, like, I'm just... Sometimes I just don't have proper words and I come across funny. I don't know. I mean, he died at war, which is kind of fucked up, but just given all of his ideas about all this stuff. It's wild. Okay, let's see where we're at here. And then we have Käthe, is that how you say that? Käthe Kollwitz? The emotional power of post-war German Expressionism is evident in the graphic work of Käthe Kollwitz, 1867 to 1945. Although she had no formal association with any expressionist group, Kollwitz explored a range of issues from the overtly political to the deeply personal. Just kind of, like, all of this whole chapter revolves around, like, it usually does. With most of the things we'll see in each chapter revolve around politics, but it just makes me laugh because I've had people try to be like, art doesn't have anything to do with politics, it's beyond politics, it's beyond politics. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, but like, no. Like, have you studied art history? Because it's always about politics in some sense or another. Like, who would look at this or this and say this is a piece of political artwork? When I say it's about politics, I'm not saying it's like, oh, look, you have, you know, fucking Franz Ferdinand over here being shot in Yugoslavia or something. Like, I'm not saying that. But this piece of artwork, it had emotion. The reason it came about to be this way and look that way was as a result of what was going on in politics at the time. Like, everything has an effect on you, and especially during turmoil and times of world wars and shit, it's gonna have an effect. And this isn't screaming politics, but it is if you know about what's going on in the world and why this came to be. So it's interesting. Hello guys. So yeah, this woman, Kollwitz, I'm just going to call her Kollwitz, 1867 to 1945. She had no formal association with any expressionist group. Kollwitz explored a range of issues from the overtly political to the deeply personal. That's another thing, personal is where art kind of comes into. One image that she treated in a number of prints was that of a mother with her dead child. Yep. Kollwitz initially derived the theme from the Christian Pieta? I'm thinking paella. Ayeda. But no, that's the one with the Virgin Mary holding Jesus. It's like, ah, that one. But transformed it into a universal statement of maternal loss and grief. In Woman with Dead Child, okay, I don't mean to be funny about that, but that's another really autistic, accurate description. That's how I would title a painting. Woman with Dead Child, she... Oh, let me bring it up to you guys. Oh, I forgot to screenshot that one for you. So I don't have that for you. You're gonna have to look at it like this. She disavowed the reverence and grace that pervaded most Christian depictions of Mary holding the dead Christ, and replaced those attributes with an animalistic passion shown in the way the mother ferociously grips the body of her dead child. Oh, this is so sad. The primal nature of the image is in keeping with the aims of the Expressionist, and the scratchy lines and etching needle produced serve as evidence of Kollwitz's very personal touch. The emotional impact of this image is undeniably powerful. I mean, yeah, it is. It really is, actually. That Kollwitz used her own son Peter as the model for the dead child, no doubt made the image all more personal to her. The image stands as poignant premonition. Peter died fighting in World War I at age 21. Man, both of these German expressionist artists, like, holy shit. We don't hear much of World War I. It's always World War II, Nazis, Nazis, Nazis. But, like, wow, it's really interesting to kind of tap into World War I kind of stuff. The tragedy there, that's really sad. So this is Woman with Dead Child, 1903, etching, overprinted lithographically with a gold tone plate. Cool, that's actually interesting. The fact that it's not just like another oil painting. It's an etching, overprinted lithographically with a gold tone plate. It's 1 foot 4 5/8 inch by 1 foot 7 1/8 inch in the British Museum in London. The theme of the mother mourning over her dead child derives from images of the Ayeda, is that how you say it? In Christian art, but Kollwitz transformed it into a powerful universal statement of maternal loss and grief. Sad. Wow, her son died. Crazy. Okay, let me just... That is the end of what I'm going to be going over today. Let me just check in on you guys a little bit, and we'll wrap this up. Yeah, Matthias says World War I was just as tragic as World War II, yet isn't as talked about. Yeah, I agree. That's... I don't know. I forgot some of my references earlier about it, but yeah, we should know a little bit more about that. It's really interesting to kind of see through art history what was going on at the time, and the devastation that it was. I mean, let's not forget that people lived and died during that time fighting those wars as well. It's really interesting. But next week we have primitivism and cubism. So there's cubism and futurism before we get into Dada. I think futurism, yeah, is really so. And cubism, yeah, okay. We're getting there. It's getting fun. Yeah, that's where we're at today, guys. I will sit here a little bit if you want to talk about anything. and have any questions, or don't forget maybe some Streamlabs tips that could be helpful. Thank you so much. Oh wow, that's really interesting. I didn't know that. Let's go back to that. Abaton Book Company said that the brown section at the bottom right of the Marc painting is fire damage. I thought that was part of the art. Let's look at this again. Holy shit. Why didn't this textbook mention that part? See, I thought it was meant to kind of go from this color scheme to something like darker, but now that you mention it's fire damage, I do see the irregularity of how this was instead of those sharp lines. Really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I thought that was part of the image. Holy shit. Like part of the art. Really interesting. I thought it was meant to get a little brown. It was saying something. I feel weird just sitting in silence, but I feel like I'm just gonna sit here for a minute and wait for a few comments or donations to come in and see what you guys are chatting about in the chat. Stephen is who went to Florence, saw some classic pieces, very nice. Yeah, I mean, everywhere you go, I think there is something, I think. I know there's museums in like Philly and wherever, things that I'm not familiar with. It would be nice to see whatever museums are there. I'm lucky to be in New York. There's amazing, like a lot of stuff here. And stuff that's in these textbooks that, even in this chapter that we went over today, that are in New York. The MoMA, the Met, Guggenheim. I think the Guggenheim we saw, the Kandinsky one is in Guggenheim or something. I just like how this looks in the frame. In this gold frame next to me here. Yeah. I think this kind of artwork is cooler than the right like to give it credit. But it doesn't seem that much is going on in the chat. Thank you guys for coming by. Again, tomorrow I will be streaming 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be going over my comic book and the symbolism involved in that. We will go over all of that tomorrow. And promotion of that, I have the alternate cover to promote. I need funding for that. And it's my photography on it. Cool. BMT Line says Philadelphia Art Museum has an extensive Duchamp collection. Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I knew that there was like some museums in Philly. I feel like I've heard that somewhere or read that, but I wasn't sure what was in it, but Duchamp was cool. Thanks, Jay. I really appreciate you being in here and modding. Mutis Lieber, nice name. Nice name. Says I cannot wait to read it. The title of my book is Lady Alchemy, Mutis Lieber, which is Latin for silent book, which is a real alchemy book from like 16th century or something, or 17th, something like that. And I've actually seen it and held it in real life before, which is really cool. Just like it's depicted here, I have had it in my hands, and I think it's also really cool because it's called a silent book, which is kind of like a comic book because it's just all illustrations in it. And so it's like there's a lot of symbolism going on in it. I think it's really, really cool. All right, let's get out of here. I really appreciate you guys. I'll see you tomorrow, I hope. And Thursday we are doing etiquette.